Hey guys, in this month's top 5, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite college reads. So this top 5 is actually going to finish up this series of top 5s that I have done through the past couple years. I did a top 5 on my favorite like elementary and middle school reads, and then I did a top 5 on my favorite high school reads. So yeah, my college reads, and that's going to kind of round up all of my academic reading. So yeah, if you want to see my other two videos that I did with my other school reading, I'll leave those at the very end of this video for you guys to click on if you so wish. So yeah, college reading. I majored in English. I have a bachelor's degree in English. Hasn't done anything for me, but it's there. I read so many fantastic books in college. It was so ridiculous. I just had such a great time reading some of these books, analyzing them, talking about them with some of my classmates. Just a lot of great reading that just really broadened my reading and made me think, maybe look at things differently. So yeah, this is just a very small sampling of some of the books I read in college that were some of my favorites. These are books that really just stood out to me. And yeah, very, very difficult for me to narrow it down to 5. There was a few that I was a bit heartbroken not to include in this list. At number 5, I have the short stories of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, I knew that Nathaniel Hawthorne had wrote The Scarlet Letter, and I had actually read The Scarlet Letter in high school, and I actually ventured on my own to read that. That wasn't even required school reading. I just ventured out on my own to read The Scarlet Letter. So here comes college, and I eventually, kind of throughout my 4 years of college, I read quite a bit of Nathaniel Hawthorne's short stories, and man, I love Hawthorne's short stories. So good, really eerie, and he just has a unique writing style. And I always go on about how Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite short story writers, and I think Nathaniel Hawthorne is definitely probably my second favorite short story writer. He's very reminiscent of Poe in some ways. They kind of have that similar sort of quirky style. I think one of my favorite Nathaniel Hawthorne short stories is definitely The Birthmark. If you've never read it, you need to go check it out right now. It is so good. It's kind of a commentary on what is perceived as beauty, what is beauty, and then the nature of science and whatnot. And it's really chilling and really well put together. And I've actually been trying to look for a Nathaniel Hawthorne short story collection, like his whole complete works, but I don't know if I'm just not looking in the right places, because a lot of times I'll see like maybe a sampling of some of his short stories, and I'd really like to get the whole collection, because every short story of his that I have read, I enjoyed. At number 4, I have Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Tess of the D'Urbervilles is probably one of the most depressing books you will ever read in your lifetime, but it is so freaking good. I enjoyed pretty much every aspect of this book. I liked the whole just twisted love triangle. Yes, I'm going to call that a love triangle because that's what it is. Just such a great set of characters, a great story, so heartbreaking. I remember when I first read this book, I read it for a British literature class, and I remember just not being too excited to read this book because I think I was reading the synopsis and I was like, oh my god, this sounds so boring, but man, was I pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this book. And I even wrote like a 10-page paper for this book for my final exam, which I had a lot of fun with. At number 3, I have Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. Man, this piece of is it poetry? I think it's a piece of poetry. I can't quite remember, but oh my goodness, I freaking love Goblin Market. Just such a unique read and such a unique experience. It's about these two girls, I believe they're sisters, and they run across these goblins, and it gets all very deep and psychological, and you can definitely interpret this this story as sort of erotic fiction, sexual awakening. It's very, very interesting. I've definitely been meaning to purchase a copy of this poem. There's a really beautiful edition that I've been wanting to get my hands on. It's about like $15, but I've definitely been in the mood to read this story again. I've not read it in such a long time. And I loved this story so much. I kind of fangirled. There was this episode of Doctor Who. It was the episode called Midnight with David Tennant. There was a part in that episode of Doctor Who where one of the characters started speaking out some of the lines from Goblin Market, and I fangirled so hard during that moment because I immediately knew that was from Goblin Market, so yay. At number 2, I have this really crappy edition of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Jesus, this was like the standard edition that all English majors had to get for Jane Eyre. Just such an ugly edition. I love Jane Eyre so much, so I definitely need to get myself a brand new beautiful copy because this thing is just sucky. Jane Eyre. I was terrified going into Jane Eyre because I had friends at the time who had read Jane Eyre, I think in high school actually, and they were all sitting and saying, oh my god, Jane Eyre is so boring, it's so long, nothing happens, and this and that. So I was so terrified. But yeah, for the most part, the people who I had run across who had read Jane Eyre, people either loved it or hated it, but for the most part, people seemed to hate Jane Eyre. So, oh yeah, I was so terrified when I took my Victorian literature class, got this book, but man, once again, kind of much like Tess of the D'Urbervilles, I was pleasantly surprised. Jane Eyre is probably one of my all-time favorite classics. I just love the story, love the characters. Jane is probably one of the most relatable characters in the history of literary fiction. And Mr. Rochester, one of my all-time literary crushes. And at number 1, my number 1 favorite read that I read in college, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. In my senior year of college, I took a children's literature class, and The Book Thief was like the very last book that we read in that class. And what a great way to end my final senior year, my final class. The Book Thief, if you don't already know, The Book Thief is my favorite book of all time. It's up there at number 1. Nothing can beat this book for me. And the great thing about reading The Book Thief in a literary course and being surrounded by other English majors, it was just an incredibly fun experience. It was just a really neat way to kind of analyze this book, you know? And it was incredible because when I took my children's literature course, we read Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland and 2 of the Chronicle of Narnia books and the Golden Compass trilogy. And all of those books, there were people that loved the books, there were people that hated the books, but I think with The Book Thief, it was pretty unanimous. Everyone in my class loved this book. And yeah, just so fun to analyze this book in a classroom setting. So yeah, I really deeply thank my children's literature professor for putting this on the syllabus, because I don't know if I ever would have got around to this book. I think it would have took me years to finally get around to reading this book, and so yeah, I'm just so happy I got to read this for college, and definitely my favorite read of all 4 years. So that's it for this top 5. In the comments below, those of you who have attended college or university or just any form of higher education beyond just high school, what sort of reads did you enjoy? And just list those books down below. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you liked this month's top 5, you may like these other top 5s. Bye guys.